Democrats are playing defense when it comes to control of the Senate in November. Their incumbents need to hang on to the hotly contested seats in red states like Montana and Ohio. And I am glad to welcome one of those incumbents, Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio. He's running against Bernie Moreno. You probably haven't heard of him. He's a business guy who has made election denialism a focus of his campaign. Senator, I'm so glad you're here tonight. We know that the top issue for voters in your state and across this country is the economy. Inflation's an issue. But how do you make them care that the presumptive Republican nominee is on trial right now for election interference, and he's got 3 more on the way? You know, things like that feel abstract to the voter, but they're the very foundation of what makes our democracy work.
Well, I focus on my job. I focus on, I know the plenty for the pundits to talk about on politicians in Washington and media people. And I think it's one of the reasons people don't much like Washington. And my focus is, like today, I was in Toledo this morning, and I did an event with 2 people that were paying way more for their insulin than they can afford. They're now, because of what we've done, bringing the cap the price of insulin to $35 a month. And in the future, we're going to put a limit on out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs for Medicare. It's those issues that people listen to. Those issues are what people vote on. And the rest is, for most voters, the rest is background noise.
But then let's talk about that. Because the president is actually passing historic legislation when it comes to helping consumers, the average American, deal with the economy and deal with things like inflation, whether it's shrinkflation or forgiving student debt or, as you said, prescription drug prices. President Biden is doing a lot. How do you get the voters in your state to know this, to understand it, and to give him credit for it?
Well, first of all, we have to do more. I certainly talk about it. I mean, we're running ads right now about what we've done on the PACT Act so that veterans exposed to those football field-sized burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan are getting treatment. It's named after a young man in Ohio who passed away from an illness after exposure to that. We've passed our pension bill, and again, named after an Ohioan, which restored the pension of 100,000 union workers just in my state alone, 1 million, and mostly in the Midwest. But we've got to do more. When you go to Connie and I go to the grocery store often after church on Sunday early afternoon, and I see people that, they're not happy with food prices, but they understand that it's about corporate greed. Every time you pay more for your food at the grocery store, you're paying for stock buybacks. You're paying for bonuses for corporate executives. And people know that. And our legislation to empower the FTC to crack down on deceptive practices by the food industry that shrink the size of products in the bottles and the packages and the cans while they increase prices. And people know there's a con game out there, and they know that the system, the economy's rigged that way. And that's why I win. I mean, I stand up to those interest groups and will continue to.
House Republicans are sending the impeachment of DHS Secretary Mayorkas to the Senate tomorrow. Will you join your fellow Democrats in voting to skip a full Senate trial?
Yeah, I think that, it's a distraction. I just wish the House would do this. I wish the House would pass the bill dealing would pass our bipartisan border deal, our bipartisan border bill, which will keep the border, which will essentially close off the border and keep our country safer and deal with fentanyl way better than the House has. I wish we would pass the Ukraine bill. I wish they'd pay attention to the real things that matter, not the political games. But this is a House of Representatives in chaos that's always playing political games. We passed, the Senate's not exactly a model of always good government or getting things done quickly, but we passed a strong bipartisan bill in Ukraine. We voted for border security. If the House would follow suit instead of playing these games, our country being allowed, people would be safer. Fewer people, 400 a month die from fentanyl overdose in my state, 400 people every single month. We've got to deal with those issues, and the House of Representatives just wants to keep playing games.
But the problem is political games has become the name of the game. So what do you say to those voters who say the border is an issue and immigration is an issue, who don't realize it was Donald Trump who blocked that bipartisan border deal, or they're unhappy with inflation, but Donald Trump hasn't offered any policy solutions to address that life's expensive here? How do you get them to understand that?
Well, my job isn't to get them to understand or to weigh in on the presidential race. My job is to do my job, and that's working on our bill to stop those companies from deceptive practices, is to work on the Ukraine bill. Huge Ukrainian community in Cleveland, I believe the third biggest in the country. They're terrified about what's happening in their country, what's happening to their family members. My focus is on getting that done in the Senate, getting those bills passed in the House. Politics, I understand this shows a lot about politics, and, I guess it's what I do for a living, but my job is to get these things done. And the politics really will take care of themselves, even in a state that some people says lean more conservative. Remember, in my state, last November, we passed by 13 points, 57% of the vote. The people in this state voted for a constitutional amendment for the state to guarantee abortion rights. The guy you mentioned at the beginning running against me is not just for a nationwide abortion ban, no exceptions. Even in the face of Ohio passing that bill, he's still trying to enact abortion ban, even though even overriding what the voters. That's why I ask people to come to SherrodBrown.com, sign up and help us fight against that national abortion policy they want, and that digging in support of interest groups instead of taking on the drug companies and Wall Street and the food companies that are jacking prices up.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.